Hello, everyone. Welcome to BizTalk World's talk show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today, we have Bijayatri Roy with us. She's the managing director and chief strategist of a startup company called Institute of Pioneering Insightful Research and EduTech Private Limited. There's a very great thing about this interview, if I have to say. I mean, Bijayatri, she initially started working in the legal field as a banking and finance associate at a boutique law firm in Mumbai, and then when she also went on to teaching and taught banking laws and commercial laws at a private law school, and then she made a transition towards the edutech space, and she actually got 2 years of experience while working in an edutech company before deciding to go independent, and then she started her journey as an entrepreneur with the venture that I named earlier. So I guess that was a very small bit about Bijayatri. So without any ado, let me now introduce you to the lady herself, Bijayatri. Hi, Bijayatri. How are you?
Hi Sagar, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Bijayatri. Thank you very much for asking. I tried my level best. I mean, in covering your journey. I know I cannot do that in just 4 lines, but I tried my level best. These switches that you did must be, it must actually sound interesting to all the viewers and to me precisely. So it would be great if we can start hearing about you in your own words, like your journey so far, and you know, please brief us about your journey so far, so that we can get started with the conversation.
So Sagar, I took up law, the 5 years law course that most of the universities in India offer, and I completed that in 2013. And after that, I went to London for my masters. So I studied at Queen Mary University of London. And so even while doing my masters over there, I was quite into the networking part, and then also coming up with new ideas to start certain things within the college. So we also did a lot of these meetings that used to happen, which were limited to a certain number of students, and there were these senior professors and all from the university. We would basically brainstorm, and we would discuss certain marketing strategies for the department, for the college itself. And then plus I was also part of the editorial board of the Queen Mary Law Journal, which was again something which was a new experience and a new learning experience for me in that sense, because I mean, I learned the editorial part, but more than that, being a part of a board. So basically, you need to take quick decisions when you are in the meeting. So we used to have monthly meetings, and it was, I mean, obviously, we all the members. So we were 5 or 6 of us, and we were expected to have our own viewpoints on a lot of new ideas, and all the brainstorming basically. So that's something that I have taken back from there when I came back. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, I also worked at a boutique law firm in Bombay. It's called Orbit Law Services. And that again was a new experience for me, because we are generally not taught banking law when we study law. So, to get the practical insights into banking transactions, in the sense, I'm not really talking about the day-to-day customer transactions that we generally do as normal people, but I'm talking about the corporate transactions. So that was something that again was a very new thing for me, and especially um, uh, because of the fact that very few people are actually aware that banking law is not just limited to bank to law as such, but it has more to do with your you know communication skills and your networking skills in that sense, and also negotiation skills. So I learned a lot of these practical things while I was there. And teaching again, academics is something that I've always been fond of. um, Teaching was a very good experience for me in that sense, and I was able to interact with, I mean, obviously, I was able to interact with students who are almost nearby my age group. But yeah, it was it was a very fulfilling experience for me for how long I was teaching. And then the edutech part, of course, I mean, I realized that, edutech can be one of the areas which I can explore if I, somehow start something. And I mean, that is what happened. So while I was still working there, I used to always think of ways and ideas of, expanding the horizon of the edutech perspective in that sense. And I mean, if you, for example, call yourself a law edutech, so it should not really be limited to the typical law areas or the law fields, but it should also be multidisciplinary.
Mm-hmm.
And with that in mind, actually, we came up with the idea of my startup.
Mm-hmm.
So, initially, I had been thinking a lot whether we should include edutech or not, because initially the idea was to just think of economics and sustainability, climate change research, and consultancy for um, the governments and the non-government organizations, or for schools and other universities and colleges or other training centers.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided that, edutech is a very good area to actually capture at this point of time, especially when we are living in a time when everything has become online, everything is based on technology. So why not explore that for ourselves? And in fact, even the research work that we are planning to conduct, or the research work or the consultancy that we've already taken up, they are mostly, they have some element of edutech in them to some extent, even if we
Mm-hmm.
are not really advertising it or advertising that particular project as an edutech project. But of course, there is a very important element of edutech in that as well, because obviously we are trying to integrate technology and academics and research and the research tools that we are using. Plus, for consultancy, obviously you need to have um, some kind of basic industrial experience. So we are just putting all those things together and just hoping that, somehow it could make a difference to the society in the long run, because the topics, or the areas of our I mean the areas in which our startup is actually working in are very pertinent for the social and economic development in that sense. And we are not
Mm-hmm.
just limiting ourselves to, just providing basic academic or research skills, or providing consultancy which anyone and everyone can provide. So we're just trying to capture certain niche areas, and using those, we are just hoping that, it should make some sort of impact, socially, at a global level.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've just started, but the kind of response also that we've started getting is, very positive in that sense, because everyone really at this point of time wants to explore things beyond their financial gains.
Yeah.
So, and it's something that is very impressive in that sense. And I think it's the pandemic which has actually taught us what the real value of life should be, rather than, just focusing on the monetary or the materialistic aspects of things.
That's like explaining your bio that I explained, I mean, in a broader sense. And I guess now our viewers got a broad understanding about your profile and what your organization is all about. On this, to continue this discussion, I mean, if we see regarding edutech, I was part of edutech once in my journey as well. So what I believe, and what maximum individuals believe who have been associated or friends who worked in edutech, it's a very difficult place to work in. You are having an edutech startup now with you, all right? However, I understand that edutech startups could be different, I mean, in their approaches and they have product or service or whatsoever. Do you think that is it really toxic nowadays to work in an edutech startup? I mean, we know the names, we should not take the names, but you know the names that we are talking about. So what do you think, and how you will make it different in your venture?
Not taking names, but the approach should never be about what am I going to gain in the long run. I mean, obviously, I am not a Section 8 company that I'm, looking for a non-profit,
Mhm.
but definitely I'm also not a company which is only focused on the money aspect or the monetary aspects. Plus, there is, I mean, of course, I have read about a lot of these, I mean, toxic, to put it in a very
Toxic, yeah.
simple way, and not to, use other terms that are being used these days. I mean, I've
Yeah.
seen videos on YouTube where a lot of
The beep
discussions are
words,
going on.
yeah, the beep
Uh,
words.
yeah, and I think it's very important for any company, and I don't want to sound like I'm preaching something because I'm very new to this field right now, and I don't think I'm at a position to preach anything to anyone. But what I can say from my experience, and also from the basic human values that I mean, speak from right now, uh, the approach should never be to cheat your customers or to provide a sales or a marketing gimmick as such. If you are selling, so for example, if I am saying that I am an edutech organization which will provide quality training on skill development, so I cannot just just write skill development and leave it there and start marketing it in such a way that people have a different expectation, and they start investing in it, or they start paying the fees, and then later on they find out that that was not the skill that they were actually expecting.
Hmm.
But at the same time, if I very specifically mention from day one on, I mean, wherever, whichever forum that I'm using to communicate to a larger audience about my edutech startup. For example, if I'm writing on LinkedIn, the approach is always to give them a very clear cut idea of what they should expect from my organization. Because there are thousands of edutech companies right now all over the world. And I think because of the global pandemic and things starting to transit from offline to online, I have come across so many edutech companies on LinkedIn, uh, which provide, I mean, which are providing a wide range of edutech solutions, even for the pre-nursery kids. I mean, that's the level of technology that has merged with education right now.
Yeah.
But it's very important, especially for organizations that are dealing with students. So by students, I don't just mean kids or teenagers. I also mean uh, graduation students or master students or B school students or fresh graduates who are looking for certain skill development or certain skill enhancement in that sense before they enter the job market. So it's very important that as an edutech company, I make my product very clear cut.
Hmm.
I provide the product to the customer who wants that kind of product from me. I cannot force a customer to take a product just because I want to provide it.
Yeah.
That is another aspect which draws the line between a good edutech company and a toxic one. And that is something which is very important for, I mean, even for those who are planning to start their edutech companies or ventures. And I have seen a lot of these youngsters who are still in college who have started their own small scale edutech or a small scale venture providing very simple skills like how to make your CV or how to write your cover letter. So
Hmm.
even they need to be very careful, because it takes very little time for somebody to fall prey to, false marketing gimmicks, or it might or might not. I'm not saying that everyone is doing it intentionally,
Yeah.
but at times unintentionally also we tend to inflate what we are actually providing, and that is where the problem starts.
Yeah.
I might gain a certain number of followers or a certain number of prospective customers by just saying that I'm an edutech company and I provide, for example, skill development. So, I'll have thousands of applications coming in every day. But will I be able to provide the kind of skill set that each and every of those applicants require is something that I need to first think of before I start venturing out saying that I'm providing skill development. For example, I might be specialized in public speaking. So I will specifically mention that I provide edutech, um, edutech training or online training on communication skills.
Mm-hmm.
Again, communications, if I write communication skills, that includes a lot of other things, which I might not be well versed with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that is something which is very important for any company in that sense, not just an edutech company or an online company, but for any company. It's very important for them to be very clear on what product they are providing, basically. Coming
That's
to
right.
the other part of my organization, which is also the research, the economic and sustainability research and consultancy, that again will include some kind of edutech, like I was telling you, because
Mm-hmm.
there will be certain online training programs, certain online workshops, or certain webinars that will keep happening from time to time.
Yeah.
Again, if I start portraying it as, I'm providing all sorts of trainings on economics or all sorts of training on maybe sustainability or climate change, that is actually going to give a very wrong picture to,
Yeah.
people who actually want to learn something. They might want to learn something which I'm not able to offer. So that is one of the strategies that I would say that every company should adopt. Especially edutech companies need to be very careful when they are advertising their product. They cannot be so irresponsible, because it is a matter of somebody's education.
Yeah.
And believe me, people are ready to spend lakhs and crores of money for quality education,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that is the main criteria for people to become employable at this point of time. So
Yeah.
they will not think before investing whatever money they have. But it is very important for every company that is providing any kind of education, especially, or providing any kind of knowledge or skill set. It is very important for them to, start practicing that kind of responsibility towards customers, towards students, and most importantly, they should practice this kind of honesty and integrity, because
Yeah.
if you're providing education, whether it's online or offline, unless and until you have honesty and integrity, it is practically impossible, whatever certificates you give, or
Yeah.
whichever level of education so called you're providing, it
No,
ends
that's right.
up.
That's right. That's, I guess, because education is all about value creation. I mean, if you don't understand how to create a value, then it really doesn't make sense. And I understand there are a lot of, this tycoons that we call them nowadays, the most valuable edutech startup of the world. We know the name, but is it giving, that quality to the students? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I have been part of a few of the organizations, so I know how it works. And it's not just the issues with the organization. I believe it's my take on this, but I believe that even parents and the other authority should be aware of what's going on in the market. I mean, if we just let anyone do anything, it's going to end up giving us nothing. I mean, so that's not really important that we need. And the founders and the CEOs, of course, they'll not be living in India. Furthermore, if they have $200 million in their bank account, nobody wants to spend their money in India. So that's a fact. I don't want to offend anyone on this case. All right. So I guess that was a great discussion on a random thing that just came out of my mind. I would, because we have so many things to talk to you. I would request you to have give us a quick, uh, like a really quick approach on time management. I mean, because you are having this, I want my viewers also to understand this. We had this session earlier, but it was my stupidity that we lost it. I really apologize for that. But we are trying to repeat it and get some more information from Vijayatri, and it's her. It's she's so sporting that she's doing it again with us, and we are so happy to have her with us again. So let's have a quick understanding of how she manages time, because she's busy in everything. I mean, I also want my viewers to understand that she is also a writer. I mean, she wrote 2 fiction books as well. And I will try to put the links in the description so that you guys can also go through these books. These are named as The Enemy Within, an espionage thriller, and Journey to the 10th Dimension, a collection of science fictions and thrillers. So these are 2 fiction books that she wrote, and I guess everyone can have access to that. These are wonderful books. I want everyone to read them and know her understanding of the literature as well. So having said that, she is busy into so many things now. How do you really manage your time, Vijayatri, and how people can do it? If you can give us a quick overview to that and a quick tip on that.
So, the first important thing is to prioritize your work and to prioritize work within work. So,
Mm-hmm.
you might know that you have to do something, but how you are supposed to do it, again, you need some kind of timetable for it. So, when I say timetable, I'm actually talking about the old school way of maintaining a daily timetable, which I do. So before I go to sleep, I actually, write down in my diary. I don't use digital diaries. Okay. So that's sort of contradicting the industry that I'm working in. But I prefer to keep certain things old school in that sense, because I mean that's how the brain is going to function better.
Yeah.
Because if you, again, another, I mean, why I'm saying this is that let's not be too dependent on technology for everything,
Mm-hmm.
because by chance if your digital diary crashes, you don't know what you have to do the next day. But
That's what I say for watches. I mean, if you're out somewhere like for 4 days, if you lost the way, if your watch dies, then there's no point of having a watch. So
exactly.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, please continue.
So, the first thing that I do before I go to sleep is I write down what I'm supposed to do the next day. Now, what
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to do the next day, I might have 10 things on my priority list for the next couple of days. But
Mm-hmm.
from those, I try to, take out the ones that are not that very important urgently,
Mm-hmm.
and I put them at the bottom of my list. And at the top of my list, at least for the next day, I'll have at least 3 tasks, 3 to 4 tasks, which I know that I'll be able to complete on the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And a very important thing to do is that when you wake up in the morning, just try to, sit and analyze for at least 15 to 20 minutes how you're going to do your work,
Mm-hmm.
because that again saves a lot of time when you actually sit down to do that work.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is not just for I mean professionals, but this is more important for students, and it is more important for I mean people who are preparing for any kind of competitive exams, because otherwise, at the end of the day, you will actually not know what you are supposed to do and what you're supposed to leave out for the next day.
Exactly.
And another thing is that, the day is only 24 hours, of which you need at least 8 hours of sleep. Having said this, I don't sleep for 8 hours because, at times, I mean, and that does affect your health in the long run. So this is again an advice to everyone, whether you're a professional or a student. Please try to, sleep on time so that when you wake up, you're fresh and you don't need that cup of coffee to wake you up in the morning. And, you know, so if you wake up fresh, you have a fresh mind, and then you
Yeah.
can at least plan your day ahead properly. Otherwise, if you're groggy for almost 5 to 6 hours in the morning,
Yeah.
by the time you are actually you start getting that freshness inside you, you see the clock and you realize that it's already 11 a.m.
Yeah.
And I mean, normal work timings are from 9
Yeah.
generally.
Yeah.
So you've actually lost 2 hours of your work time already, which means that you might have to slog beyond your normal work hours,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is something that I'm totally against. And I think this is not just a lesson for managing your work, but it is a very important time management lesson as well. That if you are supposed to start your work at 9 o'clock, don't don't look at your colleagues. You might have colleagues who like to start their work during the second half of the day, because the first half they probably spend on other things.
Yeah.
But never do that just because your colleagues or your friends are doing that.
Yeah.
Try to maintain the time schedule which has been given to you initially,
Yeah.
because there is always a reason and there's always a science behind you know having this let's say 9 to 5. That is considered to be an ideal time when your brain is functioning the best. And that's the reason why it's preferable that you work during this part of the day, so that you can relax towards the end of the day and you don't have to sleep with that pressure or that tension in mind, that I could not finish the work that I was supposed to finish today,
That's right.
or tomorrow I might have to wake up earlier, finish that work, and again do the next set of work.
Yeah.
And again, the maintaining your diary becomes important in this situation as well, because if you uh, if you prioritize and if you write down what you are supposed to do on each day, and you do that before you sleep the previous night, so at least when you wake up in the morning, you know that I need to spend maybe 2 hours for this, then I take a break for half an hour. Never skip your lunch.
Yeah.
That is a very important tip that I would like to give. Otherwise, you start developing a lot of health issues from a very young age.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's very important, to manage your time in such a way that you are not neglecting any part of your daily lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because at times I have seen people. In fact, I'll talk about myself also from my personal experience. Now I've become more disciplined towards myself in that sense, because because of a lot of health issues that had started cropping up uh, a few years back. And it's that's when I realized that it's not just important that you manage your time to do your work. It is very
Mm-hmm.
important to manage your time to even take out proper time to eat.
Yeah.
You cannot just skip meals just because you are too busy,
Yeah.
working. That is a very important point that especially youngsters need to remember. The I mean, the so-called hustle culture is something that I'm totally
Yeah. Exactly.
I have been writing a lot against it. On LinkedIn, on Facebook, on my blogs, and I think I have been receiving a lot of positive response on that, because people are aware that you are supposed to not get into that hustle culture, but at the same time, because they don't manage their time properly, they don't manage their day properly, they don't manage their work priorities and life priorities, or balance them out in that sense, it is then that they fall into the trap of the hustle culture. That is
Exactly.
what I have realized over a period of time. I started working when I was 23 or 24, and for the last 5 to 6 years that I have been working, um, I think for the initial 3 or 4 years I was part of the hustle culture. But I realized that it is not it is not a good culture for any professional to adopt in the long run. Secondly, there are a lot of health issues and health concerns that come up. And thirdly, you're actually a failure in that sense because you've not been able to balance out your life priorities and your work priorities, which I think, I mean, it's very important for, it's very important for our professional growth in
Yeah.
that sense that you know how to balance out things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes a difference between somebody who has been working as an employee for ages and that same person's colleague has gone up the ladder because that person had a better perspective of looking at things and balancing out things.
Yeah.
So again, coming back to time management, time for me, again, another important thing that I would like to suggest is try to avoid social media while you're working.
Yeah.
I mean, you can take out some time, maybe after you are done with your work for the day, you might sit down for maybe half an hour or 1 hour because there's actually nothing much to surf on Facebook, to be
Yeah.
very honest. I mean, on LinkedIn, you find a lot of educational stuff or a lot of inspiring stuff which you can go through. Or maybe even on Instagram, there are like these short videos and all just
Yeah.
for entertainment purpose. Or you just, I mean, it's for, I mean, it's just meant for 5 to 10 minutes of surfing. But when you go to Facebook, somehow uh, it just takes you inside and does not want to leave you or does not want to let you go out.
Yeah.
And like I keep joking and I keep writing about this also all the time. It just feels like you after every 5 minutes you just impulsively open the door of your fridge, knowing fully well
Yeah.
what all is there in the fridge, but you keep opening it.
Yeah.
So I mean
That's the hope. That's hope
that
that
is
you'll
what,
find something
yeah,
in the fridge, and that's the hope I guess we all search on FB itself.
on
I mean,
Facebook.
on Facebook. I mean, last time also you said that you are not using it since like quite some time now.
Yeah, and like I'm not very active on it anymore. I had been active for a while, but now I'm not active that much. And
Like
like
I am completely out of Facebook since like 5 to 6 years. I
that's
really
a
just don't like it because yeah, exactly. There's really nothing. I mean, even now, if you put a picture of you, some of your relatives now come on Facebook and do this
yeah.
embarrassing things with the pictures. So
And more than relatives or anyone coming up with embarrassing things, at times there are a lot of unwanted
that's also a thing. Yeah,
unwanted content that you are consuming knowingly and
you're exposed to
unknowingly.
everything basically. I mean, there's no
Plus,
filter towards
there
anything.
there is there is no concept of genuine posts anymore. I mean, uh, like earlier it was limited to WhatsApp. Now it's gone to Facebook, and in fact, I've started seeing a lot of fake stuff on LinkedIn as well.
Hmm.
So I think this fake I mean the fake news and the fake post part has crept into the the professional world as well. And I think it's very
Exactly.
important for people to learn how to filter things out because at
Exactly.
times people knowingly or unknowingly they also share that content.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, there might be some fake job posts on
Yeah.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
and people start sharing those. And once you start sharing those, they are as good as genuine. For somebody who's actually, probably desperate to get a job, that person might just fall for it.
Yeah.
And that is a very big negative impact of social media in that sense. So, you
That's
know,
consumer awareness, I believe,
yeah.
because I mean, I know portals are doing their maximum to really find out and do their stuff,
But they
but
can't
it's
do it.
us who have to. Yeah, they
I
of
mean,
course can't do it. I mean, you cannot.
yeah.
I mean, there are, I guess, how many there are, I guess, 3% active users of the world, of the globe, on Twitter. And even if Twitter cannot really manage them like to the core, so that's a really difficult time. I mean, human beings are very difficult to crack in that sense. And for our viewers, I also want them to understand one thing about the diary thing. I mean, I'm not lying, I have my diary here. I always keep it updated like whatever I have to do. Last time also Vijay I guess discussed about this. So that's when I begin more adamant towards mentioning my things from the diary, so that you never miss a literature. If you're into literature, you will never miss a literature. You can miss a calendar invite, but you will not miss that literature that's on the diary.
And
That's what
plus
my
your
belief is.
priority list is always there.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Because
you
if you're
can
writing
keep
something,
changing, yeah, and
yeah,
you can
if
keep changing your priority list that way.
exactly.
But digitally, if you do it, I mean, it's just a click, right? So it's actually no effort that you've put in
Yeah.
to prioritize your work that
For a
way.
lazy generation like ours, if you're doing this much effort of picking out a pen, opening the diary, writing it sometime, we know that it's important. It's really important. So that's the reason why you're writing it. All right, that's really wonderful. Coming to more things. You are a woman yourself. You have seen a lot of women in the industry. I mean, if I'm talking about in a broader sense, like a world trade sense. So, in before I ask you this question, I also want to mention this: women empowerment is a thing, which really now women get offended after hearing this. I don't know. I really don't understand why, because whenever, as an organization, whenever we mention this agenda that we have in our conferences or in our conferences, in events, that there's a women empowerment agenda, generally women get offended with this. I mean, we don't want you to take part in that agenda, but there is an agenda that is there and that should be there. You may be privileged, we may be privileged, but not everyone. There are still women that are facing the issues that we see and we don't see many a times. However, talking about that segment and coming to the positive segment, you are a woman yourself. How do you how do you understand? I mean, in terms of how do constraints and opportunities shape the role of women in world trade? If you can have a quick answer on that.
Okay, actually, it's a very important, relevant, and pertinent question in that sense. And while we talk about women empowerment, it is very important for people to understand that it's a very positive concept,
Yeah.
first of all. And it's not that a certain section is being patronized in that sense, because of which people might get offended. It is about providing equal opportunities to everyone. And when I say equal opportunities to everyone, I not just talk about the two gender, I mean, of all the genders, sorry, not two genders, of
Yeah.
uh,
Of all
all
the
the
genders.
genders. But we are also talking about within each of the gender brackets that we have. uh, it's very important to also understand that each person has different opportunities or lack of opportunities. Okay, and that has nothing to do with the gender as such.
Yeah.
So if I am saying that I support women empowerment, I am in no way saying that only the women who have the who have the opportunity, or who can use certain opportunities, should grow in their lives, and the ones who don't have access to those opportunities should remain where they are.
Yeah.
That is not the concept of women empowerment as such. But because of, you are right, because of certain misconceptions that are there, I don't know from where that has crept in, but the misconception is that when I talk about women empowerment, I am only talking about the privileged class of women. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about women in general.
Yeah.
When I'm saying women in general, I mean women from every strata of society, from every college, from every university, women who have not received any education in their lives, women who have received the highest level or highest degree of education in their life, women who, who come from countries that probably people have not even heard of,
Yeah.
and also women from countries that are very well there in the minds of people. So I am talking about everyone as a whole, and not just the so-called privileged class of women.
Yeah.
Because women empowerment, or any empowerment as such, not just women empowerment, but any kind of empowerment as such, should, I mean, the concept includes and should include, I mean, every class or every strata of persons. And it should not, I mean, the concept, whoever has come up with the notion that women empowerment is a wrong concept or is a negative concept, there is a very thin line of difference, of course, between patronizing a certain section and actually providing opportunities to that particular section.
Yeah.
So that needs to be kept in mind when I mean, for example, if an organization says that we work towards women empowerment,
Mm-hmm.
that organization needs to be very clear how they are doing it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think that is the reason why there is this whole flack against the concept of women empowerment today, because a lot of organizations are actually using this term for their own selfish interests,
Mm-hmm.
because they want some kind of publicity, they want some kind of probably they are looking for global funds or anything of that sort, because of which they are just saying that our agenda is women empowerment, even though they are not working towards it.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't even have two women working in the organization,
Yeah.
but they are just simply to join the bandwagon without even realizing the responsibility that is there when you claim something. When you claim that I am working towards women empowerment, it is a responsibility that you have taken immediately.
Yeah.
And that, I think, if these kind of organizations that have been using terms like women empowerment, environmental protection for their own selfish interests, they are the reason why people have stopped believing in the genuine concepts of women empowerment, environmental protection, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like I'm really glad that you actually brought this up, and I could clarify this for the viewers as much as possible as I could, from what I understand. And I mean, even I have had arguments and discussions with people who have no clear cut concept of how
Exactly.
women empowerment works, but they just go around claiming that they are working towards women empowerment. So I think, again, genuine people working towards women empowerment and people using the term women empowerment for their own selfish needs, they need to be separated.
Yeah.
Right. So now coming back to your question, um, so if I can, just talk a bit from the World Trade Organization (WTO) perspective, or from the World Bank's report. So, according to one of the latest reports of World Bank, Sagar, in an integrated world, it is saying that in an integrated world, the competitive pressure generated by trade raises the cost of discrimination against women, which basically, uh, is a summary of what we were just discussing.
Exactly.
That if a country, let's just say we are not talking about a country as a whole, but as of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
If the organization has actually started taking responsibility of genuine women empowerment, it will be very expensive for that organization if they start taking up fake agenda towards women empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same concept that World Bank report is also saying.
Yeah.
That if a country, uh, irrespective of the status of that country,
Yeah.
if a country is working towards women empowerment, it actually becomes very costly for that country if they drop the concept of women empowerment, right? And costly in the sense, because they are discriminating against women, obviously the workforce including women will decrease.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are other implications as well. They might not get international investors or global investors in the long run if they have an environment which is not women friendly or women
Exactly.
centric. Okay. And there is also this WTO report on women and trade, and I would suggest our readers to, download it. It is free of cost.
Mhm.
And WTO generally comes up with these reports every year during Women's Day.
Let's put this in description. Let's put this
Yeah,
links in
I'll
description.
provide the link to you.
Sure, sure.
So just put it in the description. I think it's very important for our viewers to read these genuine reports.
Exactly.
Okay, because it's coming from WTO, it's coming from World Bank, and both are very well researched papers. I mean, the WTO report, especially, it's a very bulky one.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than 250 pages on a PDF file,
Mm-hmm.
but you can download it for free, and you can keep it with you, and you can get a lot of insight into what actually is happening globally when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to women in world trade.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, it's a very positive step that World Bank and World Trade Organization have been taking all these years. Especially during Women's Day, they come up with these reports, and it's very, I think, for me, because I'm really interested in international trade, and I mean, a lot of my research work is also related to it. So for me, I think I actually waited this year for the report to come out. I immediately downloaded it. I had put that in my mailer list, and I immediately downloaded it the moment it was
It was
available
out there.
online.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for our viewers who don't want to have a very narrow picture of things, who
Exactly.
want to come out of that fake, the fake concepts that a lot of propagandists have been making for a very long time about a lot of concepts.
Yeah.
It's very important to go through such genuine data and to go through such genuine reports, I think. And
Yeah.
again, it's a suggestion for students as well, because unless and until you know what is happening globally, it will be very difficult for you to, survive in the, I mean, the competitive, scenario that we are living in today.
Of course. Of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So now again, coming back to the discussion on world trade and women. So as you again know, like I was saying, that trade is definitely going to create better job opportunities for women, and this I'm not saying from my you know from my idea, but I'm also saying it from what is there in the reports.
Yeah.
Reports are also saying the same thing, and the reports see a very positive light on world trade, women empowerment, and how well different countries have started accepting the concept of women empowerment, in the sense that they have started providing incentives to a lot of these businesses, even if it's a small business. But if the business is doing even the smallest of things, or making the smallest of efforts for women empowerment, or for the betterment of women, or providing some kind of facilities to women, or they are employing more women, in that sense the governments are providing a lot of incentives to these
Yeah.
I mean, different governments are providing a lot of incentives to these companies, and I think it's a very positive step.
Exactly.
And in fact, even our government of India is also working a lot towards women empowerment. And I think, I mean, with all the Nari Shakti schemes and all, I think it's a, I mean,
It's a good initiative. Actually, it's a great
globally,
initiative.
globally, actually, people have started accepting the fact
Yeah.
that women empowerment is not limited to the privileged class.
Exactly.
Women empowerment is about the empowerment of women as a whole. So if I say, if I talk about a woman entrepreneur, I'm not just talking about somebody in the urban areas living in a posh villa, or a posh uh, a duplex, but I'm also talking about the women who are living in the rural areas, who have their own business.
Yeah.
And I actually envy those women. I'm being very honest. I really envy all those ladies who are independent, who are not really worried about what society is going to say. And at the same time, they are doing something for themselves. They have their own businesses. It does not really matter whether they are actually, so-called educated or not.
Yeah.
But the way they are running their businesses, I think B school should actually, on a serious note, take their business models and teach them to, the young entrepreneurs or to the young business professionals. Because, and I think that again is a concept of women empowerment, which I feel is a good takeaway from how the world is slowly changing.
Of course.
Now, apart from that, the last thing that I think I would like to, add on to this is that, of course, women are reaching the highest of levels as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, so basically, directly or indirectly, women are running the world trade.
Yeah.
Right. So if a woman CEO of a big corporate house, or a woman employee of a small company, or an independent lawyer, a
Mm-hmm.
female independent lawyer, a female doctor, okay, everyone in some way or the other, because like even under the WTO concepts, um, doctors or lawyers, they come under the general agreement for trade and services. So again, that is a part of, global trade. Apart from that, companies, of course, any kind of business that is being run, that again comes under the concept of trade. So in some way or the other, women are part of the larger picture of world trade that we are seeing today. And last thing that I just somehow remembered. Um, I mean, I don't know if you are aware of the movie Key and Ka. Uh,
I heard
so
about it. I've sort of really heard about it. It's the switching the roles of
yes,
men and women.
yes. So I think not really getting into how good or bad the movie was, or whether I like the actors or not, but the very concept of Ki and Ka. So Ki and Ka is basically a man and a woman.
And a woman.
Sorry, Ki is the
He is
woman
the
and Ka
woman
is the
and
man.
Ka is the man. Yeah.
But basically, if a woman is so-called wearing the pants and running the house, so there are a lot of misconceptions about that woman,
Yeah.
right? But she is actually playing a very important role in society, and she's also playing a very important role in the economy.
Yeah.
Now, in the movie, like why I suddenly remember it is that so there was this scene there, and I think it was a very relevant scene in that sense, that they were planning to do an ad film for one of the cooking oil companies. And
I've seen that.
there is a cliched idea that because it's a cooking oil company, only a woman should be part of that advertisement,
Yeah.
right? So that is again another concept that people need to change.
I mean, uh, it's a very broad topic to discuss on. I mean, I guess we can do a whole conference on women empowerment, I believe. I mean, we can have pros and cons and for and against and all these sort of things. There are. I mean, the beauty of this concept is that it's in favor of everyone, but it's just that it's all about acceptance. And I believe that you also mentioned, I mean, to read things, it's not bad. I mean, one, our viewers also, our individuals should go through the details. I mean, if I have to sum it up in like just two words, so I would say be rational to everything that you hear of, whether it's from the WhatsApp university or from the Facebook or wherever you read it from. Just be rational to everything, and then you will finally end up reaching the final truth. And there are truths, yeah. There's no further definition to that. It's your truth or my truth. Truth is truth. Fact is fact. And if you want to neglect it, that's your choice. Now, that's where your choice is. If you don't want to hear about it, it's completely fine. That's what we call democracy. And I guess in that go, I guess we had a great discussion right now. I mean, starting from your journey to your time management mantra, to your suggestions. I mean, you have given your suggestions in between for the students as well and for the young professionals as well. And then last week concluded on a very, very greater note, very greater sense. So it's really time for our viewers to understand that everything that you go through is not real, and everything that you leave is not wrong. So just go through everything, go to the roots and find out it by yourself. And of course, for that, on this go, I would love to also thank you. Thank you very much, Bijetri, for joining us for this entire session. It was a great session for us, and I hope our viewers also enjoyed us. And we would like to have you, on our upcoming sessions on some trending topics in the industry. We would love to have you again. And for our viewers, if you like this chat with Bijetri, I would request you to like this video and share, and also click on that subscribe button to subscribe ClickUpWith Creators YouTube channel and to appreciate what we do. And you have more coming in from industry leaders like Bijetri. Thank you very much for joining us. This was Sagar for BizTalk World, signing off.